morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Let's get started this morning with our conversations on CARICOM. You know, this is how we do it on a Tuesday morning. So joining me this morning, we have special guests. Is Barbados Ambassador to CARICOM, His Excellency David Comissiong. Ambassador, good morning to you.
Morning, Pearson.
Good to have you. And you've brought along some special guests as well.
Yes, two lovely ladies.
Indeed.
On my immediate right is Ambassador Yanet Stabile, Cuba's ambassador to Barbados, and she's no stranger. She's been here for a couple of years now. Yes. But our special guest is Miss Mavy Hernandez Rodriquez. She's the head of technical services of LABIOFAM, which is a very famous Cuban company that specializes in biotechnology solutions and products. And she has been in Barbados for a few weeks now, almost a month. I must tell you that the last time I saw her was at Q in the community.
Oh, really?
Yes, at Q in the community. So she is becoming a Bajan.
Yes. Did you have a good time?
She's in the process.
Oh, she is?
In the process of becoming a Bajan.
I hope you are too.
Yes,
Very
definitely.
good. Very good. And you know, this is all about the cooperation, the collaboration between Barbados and Cuba, which continues. It's a very rich, real relationship. And we know we go back decades in this relationship as well. So let's talk a little bit about where we are now in that cooperation and what Mavy is also, what it means to have her here.
Well, just to put it in context, we established diplomatic relations with Cuba way back in 1972. But in terms of the cooperation agreement, the Barbados-Cuba cooperation agreement came into effect in 1997. Then in 2000, CARICOM Cuba established a CARICOM Cuba trade and economic cooperation agreement. So we have both, a Barbados one and a CARICOM one. But we had a very, very special Barbados-Cuba summit in December of 2022.
Yes.
When President Miguel Diaz-Canel and his whole team came to Barbados and met with Prime Minister Motley and our whole Barbados delegation. And out of that came the establishment of a new Barbados-Cuba Cooperation Task Force. So I am the head of the Barbados side of the task force. My Cuban counterpart in Havana, Vice Minister, he's the head of the Cuban side of the task force. And ever since then, we have been really intensifying the cooperation. So Mavy is here as part of a project involving the BIDC Export Barbados, also working with the Ministry of Agriculture. But I'll let her speak about that. But just to say that we are working on every conceivable area of cooperation, from trade to education to agriculture to disaster responses to, you name it, you name it. But I also need to say that we are doing the cooperation against the background in the context of that United States embargo on Cuba. And that makes it difficult because we have to kind of jump through hoops. We have to try to circumvent many of those restrictive things that the U.S. has put in place. And I especially mention it because just past Sunday the 6th of April, we commemorated the 65th anniversary of the infamous U.S. State Department memorandum, the Lester-Mallory Memorandum of 6 April 1960, that actually set up that whole sanctions program against Cuba. And just to be very, very quick, what Mr. Mallory said in 6th of April 1960, and is a declassified document now, this Fidel Castro revolution is popular. There's no real opposition to it. If we try to bring it down from outside, we will only make it stronger. So what we have to do, we have to deprive the Cuban people of money and supplies. We have to generate hunger and desperation in Cuba so that the people will turn on their government.
Mm-hmm.
So a few months later, the Eisenhower administration started this sanctions regime, and Cuba has been living with it, and all of us have been living with it now for 60-something years. So I just mentioned that because that makes it difficult. But we are committed to the cooperation program, and Mavy is the living concrete example of that commitment.
Ambassador, hearing what Ambassador Comissiong just said, what weighs on you in terms of being able to break through all of these things even decades later?
It's important to say that Cuba has expressed the will to expand this engagement, this cooperation with Barbados specifically, and with the rest of the CARICOM countries. So we are able to give our solidarity, to give our technical assistance of our professionals to try to getting better the skills of people here in the CARICOM area. And we want to continue doing that. That's why we are able to increase the cooperation in different areas: sports, agriculture, health. We have a brigade here, a medical brigade, and we are able to expand this kind of cooperation maybe in the biotechnology area as well. And as the ambassador said, Mavy is an example of that. But we have a potential to expand this cooperation. Agriculture as well. It's important to mention that the Minister of Sports from Barbados and Sports Empowerment of Community and Youth was in Cuba last December to sign a memorandum of understanding and to apply the possibilities to exchange in the sports area and in the work with youth, for example. So we had signed before a memorandum on education area in February of 2023 that had the possibility to expand this collaboration in education as well. So it's many examples of this kind of cooperation that Cuba is able to increase and is able to expand, to diversify in different other areas. So it's a principle of Cuba to continue this solidarity with people here in CARICOM, and not only in CARICOM, in the rest of the world. That's why our cooperation in the health area, and as you should know, everyone knows, is a campaign against the medical cooperation of Cuba in this moment, headed by the Secretary of the State of the United States. And we want to reaffirm here the will of Cuba to maintain this cooperation, because we is a reality that Cuba has offered health services, not export doctors. We export health services in favor of the health of people, not only in the Caribbean, in the rest of the world. It's a gesture of solidarity of the Cuban people, and we will continue doing that. And in favor of people, in favor of the health of people. So it's a particular issue that we want to reaffirm this solidarity with the world. And instead of the campaign, and at the same time, we want to thank to the leaders here of the CARICOM for the firm position against this campaign against the health collaboration of Cuba. And in particular to the Prime Minister Myanmar Motley, that denounced this campaign and reaffirmed the will of Cuba to continue, they reaffirmed the will of Barbados to continue this collaboration with Cuba in different areas.
The resilience of Cuba and Cubans is a story that I think needs to be documented, because for decades, again, you know, you're up against the might of the mighty North, but Cuba maintains its position, and to be able to reach out to, in solidarity, as you keep saying, and the principle of being able to do so with others, your neighbors as well, says a lot about who you are as Cubans as well. So talk to me a little bit about where this resilience comes from.
I think it's part of our philosophy of life. I think it's part of our personality, because it's about a history. It's the history of struggle. It's the history of fight of Cuba against any obstacles that we fought by our independence, and we continue fighting for our independence, to continue to maintain this independence. We are on the right to develop for ourselves. So I think this is part of our history. This is part of our philosophy. So Cuba is a lovely people. It's a solidarity people. And at the same time, it's a very strong people. So we will continue doing that. We will continue trying, developing for ourselves. We will continue giving what we have, sharing what we have, and with the support of people like Caribbean countries. And we want to thank as well to the international community that every year support Cuba in the United Nations, in the General Assembly of the United Nations, with the vote in favor of the Cuban resolution against the blockade. So last year, more than 187 countries voted in favor of this resolution against the blockade. So no one, no one and nothing will put obstacles for this expression of solidarity, for this expression of independence that Cuba have and want to continue develop.
I love it. Spoken so very well. And you know, I should take a break here because I need to compose myself as well, because you've inspired a lot of us through our own ignorance to be able to understand better who you are as Cubans. And so we are well poised now to help in that narrative, changing that narrative as well, thanks to your expression just now. I recall during COVID, when the Barbados Prime Minister talked about, you know, we must be able now to find a way to supply ourselves with what we need, basically to remind us that we have all within us as CARICOM, but us as Barbadians as well, to be able to do so, and to establish a space in Barbados as part of the pharmaceutical, to build our own pharmaceuticals industry. And so it's interesting that this cooperation now brings in Mavy.
You know, just to introduce Mavy, two things quickly, because you're quite right. You know, when Cuba went through that special period, when the Soviet Union collapsed, and Cuba was kind of down and out, I mean, things were really, really bad, Fidel, Cuba's president, said, look, we must build our capacity in science and technology. And even though things were very rough in Cuba, he insisted on this. And out of that came Cuba's biotechnology industry. This is where Mavy comes in. But just before going to Mavy, I want to say this, because Bajans need to know this. During that COVID period, when we were able to get over 100 Cuban nurses to come and help us, and Cuba was sending medical teams all over the world, there came a time during that COVID crisis when things got really bad in Cuba. And Cuba said they had to keep their people at home. They weren't sending out any, because the Cuban people needed that expertise at home. And that coincided with Barbados sending in a request to Cuba for specialist lab technicians and specialist doctors. And you know what Cuba said? Cuba said, look, we will make an exception of Barbados,
Wow.
and we will send this personnel to Barbados. That gives me goosebumps even
Yes.
thinking about it, right? We could never forget that. We could never forget that in our time of need, and Cuba's time of need, Cuba said, we will make this special gesture for Barbados. Anyhow, that is the basis of the cooperation
Yes.
that we are now engaged in. And as I said, Mavy is a physical expression of Cuba having developed that tremendous capacity and knowledge in biotechnology and biotechnology products. We in Barbados, we are now trying to develop our life sciences industry, but we are in that great position that we can ask Cuba for that kind of technical assistance. So LABIOFAM, the company that Mavy is head of technical services for, is a world famous Cuban company that articulates all of these wonderful biotechnology products that Cuba has developed, sends them all over the world. And I won't say any more, but that is why Mavy is here to help us with a particular one of those cutting edge Cuban products to help us address a problem that we have in Barbados.
Okay, well, first let me talk about LABIOFAM at
Sure.
a glance. No, LABIOFAM is a group of biotechnological companies. We are 23 companies around the country. And our main mission is to produce more than 98% of veterinary products, including vaccines, medicine, diagnostic, and others to protect the livestock mainly. But at the same time, we are diversified our productions in the different line of job. The bioproducts for agriculture, including biopesticide, biofertilizer, biostimulants. We produce the natural products too, as a nutritional supplements, very, very, very good products based in the natural source from manga tree, from banana stem, honey bee, medicinal plants. Yes, there we identify the plants, call it Alophenis cuminia, that from it we make a tea that the tea has a high property, reduce the blood sugar. So it's very useful to the people that suffering of diabetes. So LABIOFAM produce the homeopathic products too. We produce the food lines with probiotic yogurt that is very good product. But here I am specifically because was signed the agreement between both governments with the idea to implement the pilot projects using the biological rodenticides, call it BioRat. That is very effective and specific against rats and mice. So the idea is to do the trials with the objective to evaluate the effectiveness and innocuousness of this product in different places in Barbados. We are working with the people from the Ministry of Health, the Health Environmental Department and Vector Control Unit, and the people from the BADMC and the Pesticide Board that belong to the Ministry of Agriculture. And of course, Export Barbados, they give us the logistics support. So currently we are in the first phase when we are making the identification, characterization, and diagnostic of the areas, mainly in the city places. And the main condition is that we need that there is the high level of population of rodents to evaluate the product. So now we are making training with the personnel that are involved in the pilot, no? With the methodology of BioRat specifically. And after that, we need to make the surveillance to obtain a pre-data before to apply the BioRat. And I hope that we will apply in the next week. I hope so. We are starting the application of BioRat in the city, in some places, in markets, restaurant areas, And after that, we are continuing to monitoring and evaluating. The objective is to reduce, to control the rats and mice with the biological product. It's an environmental friendly product. It's the difference with the use of the chemical.
We're so grateful for your expertise. Honestly, I've listened very keenly to what you were saying, and it seems so deep into what you produce at your farm, LABIOFAM,
LABIOFAM,
and to be able to assist Barbadians in managing situations here on island as well. How receptive have you found the Barbadian people to be to this exposure to you?
Yes, it's a good, not? The people, the Barbadian people, it's open to do or receive the transfer of the technology, the receive of all the knowledge related with this kind of product. The idea that the LABIOFAM and Cuba have is to become Barbados in our door to the Caribbean, because this is our will. We want to introduce the different kind of product and service step by step in the agriculture area with the use of bioproducts. And all the Barbadians are very happy with that. I feel that. No?
And that's a good feeling. And thank you for that feeling.
Yes.
So, Ambassador, here it is. We're diversifying our economy. We're providing opportunities for scientists on the island and other people who are alongside them as well to be able to contribute in a big way to development of Barbados through the great work of LABIOFAM. And so this is just a part of what we're doing.
Yeah, well, and I want to really single out Export Barbados, and especially their CEO, Mr. Mark Hill, who's a real visionary. So yes, we have the cooperation, Barbados-Cuba Cooperation Task Force, but within that task force, Export Barbados has really driven a number of initiatives. You began by talking about autism.
Yes.
Export Barbados has actually sent a Barbadian child to Cuba, autistic child, to benefit from the services that Cuba provides with responding to autism. So, Cuba, maybe because Cuba has been under this pressure for so long, Cuba has developed capacity in many areas where we can benefit. But Cuba can also benefit from us, right? So, for example, for decades, we had the Cuban scholarship program where Barbadians were going to Cuba on scholarships. So I'm so proud to be able to say that about 2 years ago, we reciprocated and we started a scholarship program for Cubans to Barbados. So we have had students come in to study English as a foreign language at the Barbados Community College. And just as Cuba, when we were in need in COVID and they made that exception for us and sent those personnel, we have responded when Cuba has been in need, and Barbados has sent supplies to Cuba, assistance. So it is a one love relationship, but you're quite right. We are now in the beginning phases of developing a new component of our economy, a life sciences industry. And Cuba is going to help us with this. So in addition to the relationship with LABIOFAM, Export Barbados, BIDC, they also have a memorandum of understanding with BioCuba Pharma, which is like Cuba's, the entity in Cuba that is really in charge of research and development pertaining to pharmaceuticals, to biotechnology products and so forth. So the cooperation is very tight and led by Export Barbados, BIDC. You're going to see a lot more of these kinds of initiatives.
I would love to see a lot more of these ladies as well, honestly, but time is against me right now. But clearly, this is a subject area that excites me. I think it excites our viewers as well to know that it is happening and the possibilities that could flow therefrom. And so we want to thank each of you. Ambassador David Comissiong, Barbados Ambassador to CARICOM, Her Excellency Yanet Stabler, Cuba's Ambassador to Barbados. Thank you so much for bringing the expertise from Cuba and the passion and the will to do so. Thank you very much
for the invitation.
You're
to
very
you
welcome.
and to the Ambassador Commission.
You're very welcome. And Mavy Hernandez Rodriquez as well from LABIOFAM.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here to impart knowledge and to help us develop our Life Sciences Center as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Pearson.
much.
It's a pleasure.
Boy.
It was a real pleasure.
Isn't life in CARICOM beautiful? It is lovely when we cooperate in the ways that we do, and the outcomes can only bless us as a people indeed.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning.